Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Speak Plainly podcast, where we speak plainly about things that matter. I am your host, Owl Medicine, and in today's podcast, rather than doing a dive into some part of human behavior and looking at the biological underpinnings, like we do most of the time it seems, I wanted to share a story with where I'm at with my book, and it's just been very interesting to me to trying to do everything right and trying to give my book the best chance that it can have to be in front of as many people as possible, so it can help as many people as possible. So in my process of doing this, I found all of the ways that you're supposed to work the algorithms, because the way people buy things now is pretty much all online. And what I realized now that I've published my first little ebook, Rethinking Broken still isn't published yet. It's going to be soon, but I wanted to do a kind of a dry run or a trial run with one of my shorter ebooks that includes the same kind of, at least a big chunk of the same fundamental information to Rethinking Broken. But in my search for doing this and trying this, and I think I did it all right. I think I did it all okay. And not that many people have bought my book. I've had a big swelling of friends and family who have bought my book, this little short ebook. But what's so funny to me, and what is the topic of today's podcast, is how kind of real and ridiculous imposter syndrome is. Everybody's felt it at some point or another. And what's funny is, I don't know yet because it hasn't been long enough, but with everything I've learned about how to categorize your book and do keywords and get people to buy it and all of that, I found a hack that is used by all the big name publishers and hybrid publishers, that the place that I got how to do this from charges a minimum of $10,000 for you to work with them. Now, they only work with 6 authors at a time, 6 new authors at a time, to help them launch their book, because their big thing is, we guarantee you Amazon bestseller in some category. And if we don't get that, we will just take the whole book down and republish it again. And that's a really big claim. It's only a claim that you can make if you're working with very few people, so you can keep a really close eye on what they're doing and how to do it and really do it well. So anyway, getting into the podcast, I want to talk about imposter syndrome because it's super real. And here I am at this place where I did everything right. I wrote a book, which is super hard. It's way harder to do than graduate school, I think, or at least as hard as graduate school. And it's one of those things where you're supposed to kind of be able to feel very proud of yourself, and you can rest on your laurels, at least for a little while. And I'm having this very interesting experience of imposter syndrome, but it's extremely tempered in a way I've never experienced before. So I'm having imposter syndrome because I genuinely might be just a few days, this month, or maybe even as soon as Monday. It depends on how long it takes for them to calculate everything. But I might genuinely have a Amazon best-selling book in my category at the end of this month. And this is my first book, and that's amazing, and that's super cool, and that's wonderful, but not that many people bought it. Not enough to, qualify what I would assume would be Amazon best-selling author. Now, that title of Amazon best-selling author, you have to sell, 13,000 books in a 24-hour period or something. It's it's thousands of books in a day. But to get best in a category, you don't have to get that many. It just depends on what your category is. Like if you choose an obscure but accurate category for your book, like I did with mine, emotions are logical, then you have a much better chance of outselling anybody else in that category. So that's what I've done. And it's interesting as far as imposter syndrome for me, because what I've been experiencing is this very real sense of like, okay, I did it all myself. I did absolutely every bit of it. I'd been planning on working with a hybrid publisher to publish my big book because I wanted to make sure I did it right, but I just don't trust folks, and I don't have a bunch of money to spend on it, and I am spending a bunch of money, but not as much as it seems like I would be spending if I had one of these hybrid publishers help me do everything right. But because I've done the work and I wrote the big book and not just the little book, and I did the work to get it out in front of people, and I've done all the things, the imposter syndrome feeling isn't super strong, but it's totally there and very cognizant. And usually my experience of imposter syndrome isn't that cognitive. It's much more biological, it's much more physiological, and it's much more emotional. But this has been really wild for me because I did the work, I did it all, and here I might actually have gotten myself Amazon bestseller, and it feels like a dud. Like seriously, like a total dud. And it's interesting because it's like there's some imposter syndrome stuff, but beyond imposter syndrome, where it's taking me is almost a complete jaded sense of everything without it being too emotional. And I don't know how else to describe this for y'all because it's weird. But basically, I feel like, okay, yeah, the whole world is a game. It's all a big game. And in order to, like, do well, you have to play the game. You need to learn the rules and you need to do all that. It doesn't matter. I mean, the quality of your book and all of that stuff obviously matters, but it's like everything in life. When you get to the top, you realize it's just a game. In the military, I learned that if you want to actually make Chief Master Sergeant, you have to line yourself up from the time that you're a staff sergeant, and you have to behave in a certain way and act in a certain way and look for certain promotions and look for lateral moves, but not too many lateral moves, and make sure you do a certain number of volunteer hours and a certain number of special duties, and you spend X amount of time as a first sergeant. And like there's these algorithms that even in the military, in order to make rank, even in the enlisted side, which is supposedly less political and probably genuinely is less political than the officer side, which I don't know because I wasn't an officer, I was enlisted. Even in the military, I recognized that it was all just a big game. And if you wanted to make it to the top, you had to play the game. And I've always been one to be like, fuck your games, I play my own games. And I would play games within a game, but I would never actually fully participate in the whole game. And this book game, I've participated fully and completely because I had something in me that I believed was worth pursuing, even if it failed. And I've done that. So now I'm okay with, even if it fails, I'm okay with not getting Amazon bestseller. I would like that, but mostly because I know it will make Rethinking Broken reach more people. So I'm going to keep releasing a couple of little ebooks to practice and try to get everything down and understand the whole game that much better before I put my big ticket item out there to play that game. And so I did this all right, and I did it well, and yet I'm still sitting here with this imposter syndrome / this kind of jaded experience as to looking at it. But it's a weird new experience because the jadedness that comes with it doesn't have that kind of angsty push that I'm used to having. I've always been a fairly angsty person, and I've always been fairly resilient and resistant to most things that have been like forced on me or that have just been the status quo or been expected. I don't tend to like to do what's expected, including playing the game. But I did this time. And I'm not really sure what to do with this emotion, which is also new because usually I'll sit and I'll feel my emotions and they're big, right? Like as a trauma baby, we feel stuff stronger than most other people. So when I have emotions, sometimes they're really big, and they're so big that I leverage those emotions for fuel for something else that I want to do. But this one doesn't have enough extra to be used as fuel. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like the bigness of many of my emotions, there is such a swelling, there is such an upturn of emotions that I can use all of that excess energy in my body for doing other things that matter to me. But this time, it's a emotion and a cognitive recognition of what's happening. And I'm not having a huge emotional reaction to it. I'm having an emotional reaction, but it's subdued. And I don't think I've ever had imposter syndrome feel so subdued. I also don't think I've ever had like the system is so effing broken and experienced it as subdued. Maybe the reason is age. Maybe I've just gotten older and smarter. But it's been really wild. It really has, man. It's been really wild to move through this. So I just wanted to take some time today to talk about imposter syndrome. Everybody has it, including me. And apparently, sometimes it does get better. That's new to me. I've always just kind of thought that it's a thing that you can't ever get rid of, and I don't think you ever do get rid of it. But this seems like a place where I should have more than I do, or at least the imposter syndrome, I'm used to coming with a bunch of excess chi, because I guess it meant more. Maybe that's what it is. I guess it meant more to me before to be an imposter. You know, to feel like an imposter. And now, because of this recognition, I kind of recognize what I've known cognitively, which is that everybody's an imposter. That in order to do any of this stuff well and get to the top of anything, you have to play the game. And when you hack your way to the top, you feel like a hack. But it's the only way to the top. It's not designed for people who just want to like do hard work and stick to their values, and then that's it, and just like make something that's good and positive for the world. That is not enough. That is not enough to get your good positive thing out in front of everybody. It just simply isn't. You have to learn to play the game and to push yourself and to learn to do things that you're uncomfortable with. Like formatting took 2 days. And it was a 20-page PDF when I made it. Once I put it into the Kindle formatting, it wound up being a 35-page little ebook. And like that's kind of crazy that it took 2 days. But I came out on the other side feeling like I learned quite a bit. And it's done. It's there. It's out there. Like I am officially a published author. And maybe that's part of what is chilling out my imposter syndrome is I'm a published author. And because of what I've learned about the Amazon system, it's kind of like, okay, well, anybody could do that. But not everybody does. And usually, each of these lines of thought, like anybody could do this, is one that has one emotional reaction to it. It's like, yeah, but not very many people do, and that has another emotional reaction to it. And I can just keep going back and forth between those two. But for the first time, they've synthesized into one feeling. Like I've finally dealt with the cognitive dissonance that's created by these two opposing thoughts inside me, these two opposing beliefs or truths or thoughts or whatever you want to call them. It seems like I've finally been able to blend them. And I mean, really, it just goes to show that integration of our separate parts and of the pieces of us that think differently from the other pieces of us, that is healing. And that is advancement. That is maturity. So that brings up an interesting question for me, which is, how different is healing from maturing? And I don't know. I think it's probably not that different. Healing certainly does mature a person, and maturing certainly does heal a person. Are they the same thing? Do they just lend themselves really similarly? Does one feed the other? Like yin and yang? I don't know. So, let me tell you a little bit about what I actually did with my book on Amazon. So the whole thing I'm talking to you about is all based on what I heard that this lady in an interview, I heard her talking to, it was like an hour and a half long interview talking to some other author person. And the company is Elite Online Publishing, and they were awesome. They were really cool to talk to. They were really beneficial, and they were like, the price is the price. And I was like, yeah, that's fine with me. I can't afford it. I just don't think I want to sink $10,000 to $22,000 on launching a book. I just don't want to go into that much debt. Not that I think I couldn't eventually make my way out of it, but I just don't want that debt over my head in the meantime. So when I listened to her on this interview talk about what their exact process was that they use to get every single author that they work for the best selling author title, what they do is and you can only get 3. When you upload to KDP, you only get 3 categories, but you can actually get a hold of Amazon, apparently, if you work with them more. You can get a hold of Amazon and you can actually submit more, like up to 7 categories for a book. And what you do is you do category research. And there's a few ways to do category research. I used a one-time buy program called Publisher Rocket, and what it does is it keeps track of all the books in each category. You can do keyword searches there, you can do competition searches there, you can do category searches, and it'll tell you what the price of a book. It shows you the cover. It shows you how many books a month they sell. It tells you what the price of that is. It tells you how many they sell in a day or a month. And what you can do is go into the categories. This is what I did for Emotions Are Logical. And I was looking at like, okay, what categories fit this book? And I just dug around for a few hours looking for categories that fit the theme of my book, but don't have much competition in them. I was able to find 3 categories that had anywhere from like 7 to 28 books per month being sold in that category, or 28 books that I had to outsell in that category. I'm actually not sure which one it is, and that might be why I haven't heard back about Amazon bestseller. I just realized that. Oh well. At any rate, I did that research, the category research, and when I uploaded the book into those categories. And I actually went back in and I changed one of the categories because I found a better one. And the way it's supposed to work is now if people go and buy my book, which I made a Facebook post and friends and family have all bought it, and some people bought multiples to try to give to other people, which, by the way, doesn't show up as a sale. Even though they sold it, like it shows up as one sell, which is insane to me. That's really stupid. That if a person believes in it, wants to buy multiples to like give to people, it only registers as one sell. Anyway, I've had enough sales that 2 out of my 3 categories I have sold more if I just needed to sell like up to that number of like, I think the highest one was like 28. So if I sell 28, but like I said, now I'm not sure if I have to sell 28 books or if I have to outsell 28 books that sell a certain number of books per day, or if I just need to sell 28 books per day, or per month rather. I don't know if this is making any sense to you, but that's the way the publishing category stuff works. And then you type in your keywords because you want people to be able to find your book when they're typing in, like when they're looking for self-help and abuse, because like that's one of my categories. But another one of the categories is nonfiction out to behavioral psychology, because that's exactly what it is that I'm doing. And that's a nonfiction category. It's a nonfiction book. It does have some stories, but nonfiction from my life. And I just explain what's happening through the lens of polyvagal theory in a couple of different situations. One where your neuroception is doing just fine and gets the job done, and one where the neuroception kind of fails. And I almost started a fist fight in a coffee shop with a complete stranger while on a date. And so these are great teaching tools, but it fits into that category because it is nonfiction and the entire thing is about behavioral psychology. So hopefully I sold enough to get bestseller in that category. Now, I'll only get the badge for 30 days. If I do, the badge that little shows up on Amazon on the little corner of your book that says Amazon bestseller. I'll only get that badge for 30 days if I do outsell for 30 days. But I will get to use that title, Amazon bestselling author, for the rest of my life. And that's awesome, because that is going to help me get into more places, to do more speaking gigs, and to talk to people and to help more people. Because nobody makes money on a book. I'm not trying to make money on a book. I do love and want to spend my time helping people figure out what their skills are and then build a life around leveraging those skills. That's it. And that's super easy to do in person, and it's much harder to do in a book. But now that I figured out how to do it in a book, that book can act as an anchor for my legitimacy, and this title of Amazon best-selling author can also act as an anchor for my respectability and my clout, So I'm really hoping that it works out. But that is literally how easy it is. So long as you pay the money which isn't even that much money. I paid $100 to get into Publisher Rocket. I know there are others that are out there. Some are free, some are expensive. I'm not sure how good one is over the other. I went with Publisher Rocket, and I guess I'm going to find out if it was worth the $100, because I may have gotten Amazon bestseller, and cross my fingers. I hope you're crossing yours for me too. But now you see what I mean. It's a hack. It's a fucking hack. It's a hackety hack. Like, it's not... I don't know. It is not, the world is not a meritocracy, and that pisses me off. I don't know if it pisses anybody else off, but it pisses me off that the world is not a meritocracy. And I'm finally apparently starting to get less pissed about it, because now I've done the work, and I always wanted doing the work to be enough, because doing the work is really hard. And when most people quote, do the work, it seems like they're just trying to do the bare minimum to get by so they can pass, right? Because most of this, for me at least, goes back to school and how we're trained. But if you're anything like me, I had a lot of procrastination because I was always trying to come up with some really cool way to do a thing, to make it better than everybody else's. And so now I've done a thing where I did the work and I made something that I think is unique and different and better than average. Which, average is not that high of a... Which... average is not that high of a bar, but hey, that's what I was shooting for. Something that I did that I believed in, that I thought was good, at least slightly better than average. And now I've been doing it long enough, I've dealt with the emotional roller coasters enough that I'm able to have done that and have the chi to play the game. And that's what I'm doing. So it's interesting because now I feel like I've moved through some really frustrating stuff to where now I can enjoy playing the game. Whereas before, it felt like the game was always trying to squish me. And I understand that the context for the game, it keeps switching. So my meaning for the game keeps switching. But I'm going back and forth. It's like the book game, but it's also like the school game and the life game and the work game. And it just, that the feeling like no matter which system you're in, you're always being squished. And for whatever reason, I don't feel as squished right now. Maybe I'm just riding the high of being a published author. I don't know. But the imposter syndrome is still here, and it's still weird. And I just kind of wanted to report to you guys, I'm far from the top, right? I'm nowhere near the top, but I feel like I'm at a top for me. Like I'm at a peak. I'm at a mountaintop. I just became a published author. I've been working towards it for a long time. And even though it wasn't my big book, I feel very joyful and proud of myself, and hip hip hooray for me. Huzzah. Mazel tov. But there's still this weird, aching, none of this is real kind of thing. And I think that's the bottom line. I'm going to close out with this. I think the bottom line is that whole none of this is real thing. Which, the reason I want to close out with it is because it brings me back to that principle I have for whether or not you should do something. I really feel like we should all really only pursue a thing. If it's something that you really believe in and you're passionate and you want to do it, you should really look at, would this be worth it even if it failed? And that's the question. Because for me, hell yeah, absolutely. I would do this 100,000 times over and over again if I sold one copy, or just the 12 copies to my friends, or the 18 copies I've sold. That's all I've sold of Emotions Are Logical. Now, I sold more than that because I bought 9 copies to send to all of my Patreon subscribers but I wanted to send them free copies. That 9 didn't get purchased. Another friend bought a big bundle to give to people, and that multi purchase didn't count as individual sales either. So I know that I've sold way more than that. I've sold double that at least, but it's saying I sold 18, and according to what I did in Publisher Rocket, that should be enough, if I understood things correctly. That should be enough to actually get me Amazon bestseller as a brand new author. And that ain't nothing, even if I hacked my way to it. So there you go. That's my little thing. It's a weird one this week, but it's really just about how imposter syndrome never seems to go away fully. And I'm starting to really believe that through this experience, that whole principle of only pursue a thing if you would pursue it knowing that it would fail. I think that is the key, because I would have done this I would have done it as many times as I needed to just to do it, because it's done so many good things for me. If I knew that it would fail, and I know that there's a really good chance I may never sell more than 50 or 60, 70, maybe even 80 books over the course of the next 5 or 10 years. And that's fine, because the book was worth it for me. The big one and this little one leading up to it. It's worth it. And I knew it would be worth it because I asked myself that question. So this is my hypothesis I'll leave you guys with. Maybe the solution for imposter syndrome is only pursuing a thing if you would pursue it knowing that you'd fail. And if you can't figure out what you would pursue, even if you would fail, that's fine. You just need to sit around bored more. You need to remove opportunity because that's what you're looking. That's the way your mind is going to go. It's going to go to the path of least resistance. So instead of asking you what you genuinely want, or when you ask yourself what you genuinely want, you're probably just going to answer with opportunities that you have in the moment that seem fun. And those may or may not align with things. If that opportunity was removed, would you still be interested in that? You have a friend who has these things and these interests, and you'd like to do this together with them. Cool, that's fun. But would you do that even if it failed? Maybe not, because that's an opportunity. So make friends with boredom. Sit alone a lot. Don't scroll. Don't be on social media. Don't be on all these things that are constantly drawing your attention away from yourself. And really find those things that you want to do, even if you knew they would fail. And just start with one. And maybe, if you're lucky, you'll wind up where I am, at least today, with this sense of accomplishment and imposter syndrome swirling together at the same time, like a little chocolate vanilla swirl fudge sundae. They're not fighting anymore. They don't even feel opposed anymore, at least not in this moment. And it feels really nice. So there you go. That's my hypothesis. And that is today's podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, consider supporting us. Please, the best way you can support us is to leave a review. Please review this episode, any episode that you liked or didn't like or whatever. Leave some reviews. I would really appreciate that. Consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Thank you very much for your time. And remember, stay curious and stay uncomfortable.